So this is the complementary color scheme. We're going to be using yellow, purple, and white and black, right, to make the tints and the shades of both yellow and purple. So now, obviously, one color is darker and one color is brighter, right? So it should be a pretty no-brainer. We're going to use the yellow for the tints or the lighter areas and the purples for the darker areas, right? So that should be an easy reminder for everyone whenever you're choosing your color scheme and thinking about what color you should use. Obviously, use a bright one for the light values and a dark one for the darker values. And we said the light is coming from the right. I'm going to put remember how we did a hotspot little circle in Art 1 just to show you where it would be the brightest? So we're going to make this the hotspot, right? So that's going to be almost solid white. Okay, so let's get things ready and then start mixing. So we need to make different values for the yellow. So it's going to be solid white in here. And as we go out, it's going to get yellow or a more solid yellow. Here, let me give you kind of landmarks. So I'm drawing this really light so that it doesn't show through on the paint when I paint it. So this is kind of the rough idea. So each one of these lines is a change in value, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and do almost solid white. And I put my paintbrush in water just to have a little bit of water mixed in with the paint so it doesn't dry as quick, right? So I'm making a really light yellow right now. So a good amount of white and very little yellow to make a really bright light yellow, okay? And then if it's too yellow, obviously mix again and make it better. All right, so here's a light yellow here. I'm going to put that in the hot spot. I'm going to put more white in it. And feel free to make this a little bigger than you see it because it's going to end up getting overpowered by the solid yellow anyways. Right? Having more of the lighter paint is better than having too much of the darker one because it's easier to cover up lighter paint than it is darker. All right, so I put the hot spot down, right? Now I'm going to go over to solid yellow. And put just a tiny bit of white in it, just to lighten it up just a little bit. And also the white makes the yellow a little thicker. The white paint tends to be thicker, meaning thicker body. That's what they call it. All right. And now I'm just going to put that value down in the next section. And remember that we are also working against time. You don't want this acrylic paint to dry before blending it into the lighter value that we just put down. So I know that looks kind of bright on the camera, but it does have some white in it, as you can see me adding it right now. Now that I covered that white hotspot, I'm going to wipe my paintbrush, and it's time to blend it in so that I don't see the line, or we can't see that line that separates the really light value to the kind of like the medium yellow. All right, so there's my hotspot. There's the yellow. And now I'm going to put solid yellow in the next section, right? Because as we're getting away from that hot spot, things are getting a little darker. So you can think of solid yellow being the middle value on our ball. Remember earlier how I said I was drawing those lines lightly? I didn't want some of those lines to show up through the paint. All right. Again, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white just to make that paint thicker so I can't see through it and it's not transparent. All right. Whenever you don't see my paintbrush on the camera, it means I'm wiping it, whether it's on my apron or my hand. And remember, you have to wipe the paintbrush in order for you to kind of blend the values. Okay, now we're ready for the purple. I'm going to make a light version of the purple. So take white and a tiny bit of purple. Well, I'm going to add more. And it is going to blend in with the yellow. I just don't want it to be too solid just yet, the purple that we're about to use. So I want it to have a little bit of white in it. So here's the purple that I'm looking for. And that we're going to put along the edge. Not yet mixed. I'll mix it or blend it with the solid yellow once I have it along the edge. And be prepared for it to turn a little brown. All right, now that I have it along all the edge, now I'm just going to drag the purple into the yellow. Just be careful not to drag it too far in. And you should notice that it'll, when you start to blend them, it'll look kind of brownish. Because again, whenever you mix complementary colors, you get brown. Now the tough part is going to be having this smooth transition without having that line show up. I'm going to wipe my paintbrush, or rinse it and then wipe it. And I'm going to take solid yellow and I'm going to put it along the edge and then drag it into the purple to create that blending, because we want it to blend before it dries. And this, I think, will be the most difficult part. Having that blending be smooth. Oops. So I'm going to move that brownish into the yellow a little bit. So my paintbrush has a tiny bit of purple, which is why it's kind of fading as I get closer to the hot spot. We want to create that gradual gradation change, smooth transition as best we can. And I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow and purple and mix it on my magazine to create that kind of brownish look or value. And just put a really thin outline right here on the top. Very, very thin. I'm going to fade that out actually. So it's super subtle. And it gets super thin at the top right section of the ball. Now you may be saying, well, there's no way I'm going to choose this because this one's difficult, but I still want you to try it, which is why we're doing it together right now. All right, I'm going to continue adding, or blending, so that is a smooth transition as best as I can make it. And then continue adding that purple, because we're about to make it into a darker purple. Down towards the shadow. So this is like a medium purple that I made. But then now I'm going to take solid purple and line it at the bottom here. And the purple sometimes tends to be a little transparent when you squeeze it out of the tube that you're using. So you might have to do a couple to a few coats until you can't see through it, which is what I'll probably end up doing. And or I could mix in some white to make it lighter for the first coat. And once that first coat dries, then I can put the solid purple on top of it without any white, and it should look better. So remember how I said I was grabbing a bigger brush? I didn't even end up using it. I stayed with the smaller one. All right, I'm trying to get this line to fade out. So make sure you're still keeping this transition as smooth as you can. So if you need to grab more yellow or more purple, obviously do that. And then I'm just adding another coat or another layer of this purple. Where is the darkest part of our ball going to be? Bottom where though? Bottom left, bottom right, or bottom center? Around this section, yes. I'd say maybe closer to the bottom center here, right? So, and Rosie is also correct. So remember, the darkest part of the object is where it touches the shadow, and the darkest part of the shadow is where it touches the object. If you're noticing that you're trying to put down paint, but you're actually making it show up or making the paper show up, you need to let it dry in order for you to put another coat. And also the amount of pressure you put down with your paintbrush makes a difference. If you're putting too much pressure, you're going to end up taking off paint as opposed to putting it on. I'm going to let this purple dry a little bit. I'm going to bring in some yellow and put it over here. So I want there to be a smoother transition. And hopefully I don't mess it up. And of course, I want people to mess up here in the practice, then when they start doing it on the actual project. I think I've told you guys this. Whenever I make a painting, Before making a painting, I always do a study or make a practice one. Very rare that I don't make a practice one before the actual painting. Make sure that when you're blending or creating this transition, that it's still circular, because if you make it look more like an oval, then your ball will also look like an oval at the end. So I took the yellow and put it over the purple. And then I'm going to let that dry and then put solid purple on top. All right, I'm going to take solid purple now. That first coat of light purple that I put down, or solid purple that I put down, should be dry enough so that I can put it over it. There we go. And then now dragging the purple over some of that brownish value. Online people, how's this speed? Am I going too slow, too fast, or okay? All right. And the hard part for this one, I'm not sure if it might be the paint, but it also is the color scheme. See how this one looks more rough in this section here and not as smooth as these top two? So part of it is the colors, right? Because of the browns, and it's not making it as smooth because every little huge difference between the yellow and the brown shows up since the yellow is super light. So just do your best to try and have a smooth transition here. And if you need to grab more yellow, kind of like I'm doing, and just putting it over to smooth it out, you can. Question: what's easier for people, shading with paint or shading with pencil? Pencil for you? Pencil, pencil. Okay, yeah. I think lately for me, it's been a little easier shading with paint. only because I've been painting more than I have been drawing with pencil. Okay, I'm gonna throw in a little tiny black down here just to make the purple darker. And that's the darkest, that should be the darkest part of our ball. So making this really dark purple, it should look black on the screen, but it's not. And I'm just putting it along the bottom edge of our ball. Remember, the whole reasoning for shading anything, whether you're using paint or pencil, is to give that illusion of 3D and depth. So I know this on the screen, it maybe looks brownish here, but this is purple. All right, now we're ready for the shadow. So I'm going to make more of that dark purple. So I'm going to throw in some black, tiny bit of black, and mix it in with purple. You don't need a lot of black because purple is already fairly dark. So a little bit of black will go a long way. And at the edge here, so we're going to go from this dark purple over here. And as we go out to, let's see, here, this section is going to switch to like this brownish yellow here. Okay. So we are going to still use some yellow with the purple. So these color schemes, maybe you wonder, why do I need to do these color schemes if sometimes I just want to paint things as realistic as possible? Well, sometimes though, to be a little different or more unique, you want to change things up and change the type of colors that you're using. Still painting it realistic though, with these different colors, because we're still following the light source and the shadow, but it just looks different because we used different colors to create the object. And this is what Impressionists did on their landscapes. This is what pop artists also did, right? Remember how they chose really bright colors to make their images more noticeable? All right, so again, this is all dark purple. And as I go to the left here, I'm going to start putting in some yellow. Actually, a little bit more. So let me switch from a dark purple to maybe closer to a solid purple and putting that directly on top. And then now switching over to yellow, covering the end of the shadow with yellow, and then I'm going to mix it with the purple, and we're going to get that brownish effect. I mixed, it's a dark purple with black. Yeah. And now I'm brought in, see how I brought in that yellow? And now it's turning this kind of greenish brown. Remember when you add black to yellow, it turns it kind of like a muddy green slash brown. So that black that was in the purple made that yellow slightly greenish, and then the brown is coming from the yellow mixing in with the purple. I'm gonna wipe my paint. So this is what the end of the shadow should look like in terms of the value. Let me go grab some more of that dark purple and put another coat so you can't see through it, and then get a little closer to the ball. And then shape my shadow a little better so it's more curved and circular. All right, how are people doing? Has this been the hardest one so far or no? Okay, there is my ball with a complementary color scheme. All right, just to recap, started with a really, really light white or yellow that almost looks white, and then converted to the solid yellow, and then brought in, actually I put the solid yellow pretty far out because I knew I was going to bring in the purple and start making it look more brownish. Right? If you did not bring the white or the yellow about this far out, you will most likely have less yellow showing up in your ball. Right? We want to kind of have an even uh, mix or blend of the yellow and the purple and the brown. Right? And then the bottom down here is a tiny bit of yellow, but a majority of it purple and dark purple. Right? And then the shadow, super dark purple with black in it, and then solid purple more out here, and then went to yellow, and then blended it to get this like a darker yellowish brown, right? And now the shadow fades out, right?